one of the other things that with your experience would be great if you could share is, do you have any tips for the first 30 days? Like somebody who just is becoming a sales boss or sales manager, what would you recommend they try to accomplish in the first 30 days?
Yeah, so I have, an entire 2 chapters really dedicated to what somebody should be doing in the first 30 days. And there's really 2 areas. One is understanding the data, like historically what's going on in the organization and really getting their minds wrapped around, what it is they're dealing with. But they don't want to run the danger of being a data head, meaning I would do almost all of that work in the evening. And then the second part of that is really developing some relationships and understanding on the personal level. So rather than, and I suggest they do that in 2 ways, rather than going to their boss or their peers and talking about the sales team, what's going on, I have them actually start with who are the support people in the organization. So that might be the receptionist that's answering the phone in the front. It might be the assistant of somebody in the organization. And I have found that those people will probably have more unvarnished truth about what's happening in the organization than almost anyone else. And I list in my book, I think there's about 30 questions to be having in those conversations. And I'm really trying to get a feel for historically, right? What's the landscape I'm going to be operating in? And then I move from that, having those conversations with the support people up through the management team. And then I end with my sales team. And during that 30 days, I'm leaving all of the old rhythms that were in place, but I'm assigning those to my salespeople to do. So for instance, if they had a monthly meeting before I got hired as the sales boss, I'm going to still have them have their monthly meeting, but I'm not going to run it. I'm going to have one of my salespeople run it. I'm going to spend my entire 30 days in that kind of observational mode. When I get near the end of that 30 days, I call it my 3-day retreat. I want you going off by yourself and taking all of that data and conversations that you've had and developing what is your vision or plan for the organization, and is it realistic, and what are the bridge between where you are currently and there. So I'm crafting how am I going to tell that story.
Well, doing that obviously is going to help set them up for success. I think a lot of new sales managers get buried in the day-to-day events or the day-to-day happenings without really doing that planning, and that's very powerful.
And there's an urgency by whoever hired them to say, hey, I need to see some results and improvement today. So it's incumbent upon the new hire to say, look, I will spend 30 days where you're not going to see a lot of changes. I'm not going to be the person that you'll see show up in month 2 and month 1.
Obviously, they're making changes and they want changes. So that gives them the ability to go back and say, here's my plan. So that's just a much better way to approach it.
Well, and then when they come forward with their plan, it's more believable to the team that it's been well thought out. And I can also adapt the language that I heard within the organization. So if I mirror back using some of that language from what I've heard from the rest of the management team, they buy into my plan more quickly because I'm parroting back, in many cases, some of the very concerns and thoughts that I heard from them.
Well, and I love the way you're doing this. It's digging more into the psyche, and it's more like, if you're using the same terminology, if you don't go in there with guns blazing and trying to change the world, and you are talking the same way they talk when you present your plan, they're going to be a lot more on board.
Yep, that's it.